Hello and welcome back to this second episode in our series, the UnwAIred podcast series from VASS. If you didn't see the first or didn't watch or listen to the first podcast, as a recap, my name is Chris Brown. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Intelygenz, which is a division of VASS company focused on AI production deployments. If you did miss that first episode, I definitely recommend you go back and have a listen. It was really setting the foundation of how we cut through the hype of AI and really get to ROI. But today, I am thrilled, actually I'm privileged to be joined by my good friend Chris Vriavas, who's the head of product and strategy at Contention. As we pose the question, Chris, of what has AI done for marketing recently? It's great to have you here. You're one of the masterminds behind Contention's success, and it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So first things first, Chris, explain to our UnwAIred audience, what your role is at Contention, what keeps you busy, and then we can go a little bit more into what Contention does and how it's using AI to impact the world of marketing. It's going to be more of an industry-focused podcast this week.
Sure. So Contention is a marketing services company. We really specialize in demand gen services and lead gen services for vendors. But our mission statement is really to help educate all professionals in all industries to do their jobs better. So we're focused on figuring out how do we get the right tools, mostly technology tools, in front of professionals so they can execute their jobs better. They can solve challenges at work. They can find solutions to their challenges at work. And how we do that is we've amassed a large amount of B2B vendor content. And we work to get that in front of the right people. We use a lot of we think about it as fairly basic targeting, but we're targeting various roles and functions within organizations and trying to help professionals do their jobs better.
I can tell you there's nothing in my world basic about marketing. I spend a lot of time around complex AI solutions, and I'm pretty comfortable around that arena. But the world of marketing still is. It's a little bit of a dark art to me, so I don't think even to think about it as basic. Maybe in your world it's
right.
basic, Chris.
Well, I'd say the same thing about the AI part of the equation too. But really what we're doing is putting content in front of professionals, and if they're looking for solutions to their challenges, and we find vendors that provide said solutions, if we're doing our jobs right, we're creating a good connection that way. So we're really focused in on getting content in front of people, figuring out who those people are, and trying to marry them to the vendors, such as an Intelygenz, to find prospects and companies that are interested in those products and services.
And why is just to set context, why is the content, and not just because it's in your name, obviously, right? But why is the content so important in the role that you play? Because you do things slightly differently at Contention. So can you talk a little bit about, just set that context of why the content is so important?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So all of the interactions that happen, especially digitally, and people are educating themselves, are based on they're engaging with content, and they're trying to learn, they're trying to educate. Even a podcast is a type of content. And people are hopefully listening to this to learn a little bit more about how AI can help in marketing. So the content is really the key center point of understanding what people are looking to do in a buyer's journey. So again, going back to when professionals and companies, and those companies are looking for solutions to challenges, they're going to be consuming content. That content can be case studies, are very powerful. Customer success stories, white papers, ebooks, podcasts, videos explaining how certain services or products can help. So that interaction, that engagement with content is key to everything, right? So from a demand gen perspective, demand generation is really about, how do you help educate professionals over time, whether they're in market or not, And the buyer's journey is going to be engaging with content, learning about various products and services, how they can help an organization. So without the content part of the equation, you really don't know what an individual or a company is looking to do. So content's at the key of that. We've seen a lot of companies using technology to better understand the types of companies they talk to and the types of individuals in companies. But we think the most critical juncture is what content is being consumed. So that content is key to everything in marketing.
Wow. And we should, I should declare you are one of our good clients, right? So we've had many conversations around
Sure.
the subject. It's still a little bit of a dark art to me, I'll be honest with you, Chris, the whole marketing piece. But we've had a lot of conversation about this, and when you dumb it down a little bit, for me, we talk about, even consumer journeys in marketing. When you're thinking about buying a car or buying a TV, I think we talk about the TV,
Right.
the TV analogy, that a lot of the decision before you even engage in any conversation, in any sales conversation at all, the individual spent a lot of time outside of your sphere of influence.
Absolutely.
And this is what you're talking about.
100%. So, the TV is a great analogy, cars as well. TVs are, you don't necessarily know the brand that you want when you start the process. You're looking for certain features, a size of television, a type of television, et cetera. And so you're going to go research that and look at different review sites. You're going to look at different pieces of content explaining reviews about what that TV can do, what it can't do, et cetera. So it is all about the kind of the buyer's journey. And in B2B, where we're really selling products and services to businesses, the concept is the same. You're going to try to educate yourself on what's available, what are the different options, what are the different features, and what they can do. And talking about the buyer's journey, what we're seeing is the digital buyer's journey, particularly, right? How people educate nowadays. Is really over 80% of that is done outside of a vendor's website, outside of their kind of in-house marketing, right? Their corporate site. It's people researching online, offline to a lesser extent, but it's really searching around and finding, trying to triangulate what's going on, because again, they don't necessarily know the brand that offers the solution that they're looking for, right? They don't necessarily know that at the beginning of the buyer's journey. So a lot of that research is happening outside of a vendor, and less is it going to be...
So not even your content.
Correct. Now, what we do is we can take a vendor's content and amplify it outside of that vendor's website. That's kind of part of what we offer, right? We can... so if Intelygenz has, I know you guys have a lot of very interesting customer success stories on your site.
Thanks, Chris. That's a good plug. Yeah, we have amazing customer success stories. You're absolutely right.
But in order to access those, you have to go to your website, right? So how does someone who doesn't know who Intelygenz is
Who
find
would
that
not know
content?
who Intelygenz is? I don't understand, Chris.
Well, hopefully after this podcast, that problem is solved.
Sorry, I keep running. Carry on. I get your point. Yeah.
So it's where does that content live? How do people find out about it outside of Intelygenz, right? So a lot of times, I believe people don't know the available solutions to the problems. Just like in the TV analogy, you may not know all the features of a TV or exactly what type of TV maybe fits best in your room, looks like a piece of art, doesn't take up too much space, doesn't hurt your wallet too much. You don't really know that until you start researching. So a lot of that digital buyer's journey happens outside of a particular vendor's website. And the other trend that's happening across marketing, of course, is the younger generation of buyers that have grown up in the digital world, right? That's very very native to them. That's how you find out what you're looking for. That's how you research and find solutions. So the digitization of marketing as well, that's accelerating. So younger buyers are going to go research on their own, right? They don't necessarily give a particular vendor a call and say, Chris, walk me through what Intelygenz does. That's not really how it works. They're going to look and say, in your example, what can AI help me with this? How can AI help me in this particular problem? And who are the vendors that can maybe implement a solution for me? They're going to start their journey that way. They're going to go research about it before they even know who the brand is. So, and again, the buyers now, 2/3 of B2B buyers at this point are under the age of 40. They're 18 to 40. So that generation is growing up in a digital first world, and I know you have kids, as do I. Their ability to find something and find solutions online is that's going to dominate the future. So that digital path and figuring out how to find solutions is really, that's kind of what we're set up to try to help vendors do, help professionals do. But that's going to really kind of change that landscape of how people find solutions.
And I haven't lost sight that this is, people are tuning in to hear an AI podcast, not a marketing podcast. But I just, and we'll get there, but I just want to keep setting the context. I think it's important for when we get to that AI solution. In the last episode, I talked a lot to Frankie, who joined me, held my hand through my first podcast, about always starting with the business challenge, because you can get those, carried away, those starry eyes of AI, but really you're still trying to solve a problem, right? You're still trying to address a challenge. You're still trying to go after a growth opportunity, whatever it happens to be. So I just want to keep on the context setting for a little bit, because there's a couple of pieces that you mentioned there. So you're talking about people consuming content off your website, but also more and more companies, are they becoming interested in consumers that are consuming content in their space, in their sphere, in their marketplace, if you like, but not necessarily their content, because that still tells you something as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. And again, to go back to the TV analogy, if you're Sony and someone is researching a Panasonic, of course you want to know who that is, because they're clearly in market for that solution. So one of the things that our solution allows is, because we are marketing, we're promoting, we're syndicating content from all kinds of vendors, in particular product categories. What it allows is for us to generate intelligence, seeing who consumes what type of content in a particular product category, so that vendor A can see who's looking at vendor B and vendor C, or looking at all vendors in a particular product category. And that gives them a better sense of, A, are they in market to potentially buy a product or service? And B, if so, who are they looking at? And that context, what we've seen performance-wise from some of our clients is that they actually find that their conversion of leads or intelligence, where we tell them go after these people and these companies, they convert better when we find them engaging with content that's of their competitors. We see a lot of scenarios like that. So, whether it's the Panasonic or the Sony or the LG TV, anybody consuming any of that, it's very powerful. That's an indication that they're in a buying journey.
They're in the buying journey for a product that you sell.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is just intriguing for me, right? So humor me for one more, and then
Sure.
we'll get onto the AI. So we're not saying the art of sales is dead, right? The
Not at all.
art of selling is still there. What we're saying is the likelihood that you're going to have a very different conversation, a much more educated conversation, less about educating your buyer about your product. Still some, I'm sure, but less about educating your buyer about your product, and more defending it, explaining a little bit more, filling in the gaps of their knowledge. It's going to be a different conversation in the sales cycle.
Yeah, sales is never going to be dead, right? I think what changes a little bit is the education that can happen before a conversation with a salesperson at a vendor, because of the amount of research and content being produced. So that conversation, will be different, but also the salespeople can arm themselves a little better now if they understand a little bit more about what's been consumed. And that's really what our play is.
Yeah.
What have they consumed before? That'll give you important tidbits to talk to them about. So, if you know that their challenge is X, right? The first conversation you have with them, you want to be talking about X. Now, you don't want to preclude and say, I know what your challenge is, but if you have that insight beforehand, right? If you know that they've got a specific challenge and you can try to address that, that might help you have a better conversation, a
Guide the
more
conversation,
productive
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me drag us, and when I say drag us, I really mean drag me back to the subject of AI, because it's great context, right? I think you set the context really well. What Contention's ambitions are. I'd love you to talk to us about how you see on a big scale, like your big ambition, and then we can get onto some specifics later. But the big ambition of how you're intending, or what you'd really love to see your end goal as when you're using AI to help you on your journey to help your clients.
Yeah. So AI has been used a lot, I think, in marketing services in general, really on the pure data front. And I'll dive into that a little bit. And what I mean by that is the contacts, the professionals in particular companies, and the companies themselves. How do you predict what type of company might fit your ideal customer profile, your ICP, and which individuals within that company might be decision makers or influencers in the decision? And we do that too. That's very powerful. But I think we felt that a lot of the people in our space are focused much more on the data side of the equation. We were much more interested in who those individuals and companies are and what they're engaging with on the content front. So instead of, and we've done some work on predictive modeling for contacts and companies, but instead of focusing on that, we really saw a need to rationalize and understand the content that's being consumed and getting an understanding of what that content is for, to try to tie back to figuring out the solution, the challenge they're trying to solve, right?
So you believe the content can tell you more about the purchase intent than maybe the structured profile data and the company data, or maybe it's an augment, right? It's an and.
Yeah, I'd say maybe as important as.
As important as, yeah.
And content, because again, the content production in the world has just skyrocketed over the last decade, and it will continue to do that. More podcasts, more pieces of content. In a recent Content Marketing Institute (CMI) report, in 2024, 45% of marketers are going to spend more money on content. 42% will spend as much as they did in 23, right? So at a very minimum, despite any macroeconomic headwinds, they're spending at least as much, if not more, on content. So the amount of content continues to explode. And then within content, how do you glean from a case study, a 3 or 10-page case study, what it's solving? How do you kind of process that? So it's easy to say, Chris Brown from Intelygenz consumed this white paper. But what is that white paper? What is that case study about? What is that podcast about, right? And so we feel that understanding that and pulling insights out of the content is key to understanding what they're trying to solve in that buyer journey. So how do you process all this text or audio in the case of a podcast and really pull out insights to say, this is what Chris has researched, this is what Chris's colleagues have researched maybe at Intelygenz for a solution they're looking for, and therefore we think these are the challenges they're trying to solve. And if you think about, again, the complexity of all the text and all the volume of content, understanding what that content is trying to achieve and understanding that at scale is important. We're adding thousands of pieces.
There must be hundreds of thousands of pieces.
We've got hundreds of thousands of pieces. There are hundreds of thousands of pieces produced every year. We get new content from our clients every month, new content that we go out and find from vendors every month. That's thousands every month. So it's not just the sheer volume of the content, it's then the type of content in all of what is the content about? It's not a 0 or a 1. There's complexities in content. So processing that, understanding really what that content is about and what it can tell us to use really, for us, for the marketers and the salesperson, as we talked about earlier, that's key. Can we figure out how to arm that salesperson, arm the marketing department at a vendor and say, look, this is what they researched. That's great. Here's the case study they consumed. Here are some white papers they consumed. But here's exactly what those pieces of content are intended to do. This is the solution that they're looking at. This is the challenge they're trying to solve. And doing that at scale was, that is a challenge. It's a data challenge. It's a different kind of data challenge. And that's really what we set out to do with AI.
Wow. So I know, because I'm involved in some of the projects that you guys are doing with AI, that you've got a number of different aspects that you're going after, right? That you're attacking, this elephant-sized ambition, this one biting it off one chunk at a time, and you've made some good inroads. You've made good headway into this journey pretty quickly, and I'd really like to, if you're willing to share in public,
yeah.
Right? I'd really like you to talk a little bit about some of the specifics of those solutions that you're implementing in order to solve this big ambition of understanding that content journey that a buyer is, or a buyer journey that someone's taken through the consumption of content.
Yeah, absolutely happy to share it, and this is part of what our offering is.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the whole point of being here, Chris.
Yeah.
But
So we had done some preliminary modeling to set the stage around content, to pull out basic aspects of the content. Who's the vendor? Maybe some metadata on the piece of content when it was produced. But one of the first projects we engaged with Intelygenz is to pull out key phrases, right? So what are the key phrases within a piece of content that we can pull out and try to get a better sense of the topic, right? What is that solution and the challenge and the solution pairing? So we've kind of been able to initially pull that out and then say to a potential client of ours, hey, this vendor has consumed this content. Great. Okay, what is that content about? Here are some key phrases and the topics that this content is about.
This content can be thousands of words long, right? It can be
Absolutely.
multiple page.
Yeah.
It can be audio transcribed. It can be which is using AI, by the way.
Yeah, we're focused much more on at the moment text-based content, but could be audio, could be video-based as well, transcribing that to text as well. So again, what the key phrase can do is start to pull out that meaning and give someone, great, Chris consumed these 5 case studies. Okay, I get it. So now do I have to read all 5 case studies to figure out what Chris is interested in? How do I get some key phrases out of that to try to understand where Chris is going, what he's trying to solve? And then we can kind of cluster some of those key phrases together to get a general sense of what people are looking at in general in a product category, what people are looking at across a company, what people are looking at across an industry. So putting that together. So that was really our initial breakthrough. And that was something that we hadn't seen anybody else offer in our space, right? They haven't really gone down that path. We've also done some work on NBA, as you know, next best asset. So, this is a traditional digital marketing concept where, based on what people have consumed, they may also want this. So, if you go to Amazon, people who bought this also bought this, but doing that in a way that helps the buyer journey, that was really critical. So you've got these key phrases now, you've got some vendor information, some metadata on the content. How do we push them down a journey? Our goal is to really, again, help all professionals do their jobs better. So how do we do that? Let's give you more content that is aiming to help you solve your challenge, specifically. So that's been a big breakthrough. And that helps not just in a user journey, coming to our flagship website, CONTENTgine.com, where we have, hundreds of thousands of pieces of content. So it's not just the buyer journey. It also helps us on the targeting end. It's how we do some of our email outreach, how we know what potentially to send to Chris or other employees at Intelygenz, because we can kind of see, this is a way to think about what content to use. So the MBA has been key. But what we're really excited about is something that we've accomplished with Intelygenz over the last kind of several months. It's what we call business need, right? So, and for me, this is kind of the head of the spear, if you will, for what we're trying to do with engaging professionals and understanding this juncture of the people, companies, and the content. Those are the three pillars of our pyramid. Who are the professionals? Who are the companies? Who are the content? And the business need is taking a lot of this other work we've done and saying, okay, this account, this is based on the key phrases all the information we've gleaned from the content they consume. This is our best guess on what their business need is, right? This is our best guess of what this account is trying to solve. And nothing in marketing is perfect, but it gives you, as we said earlier, we can maybe arm that salesperson, maybe arm that marketing team with, this is what we think this account is interested in. So, hey, marketing team, maybe you need to nurture with content when you get them as a lead. Maybe you nurture them with topics around this business need, or Mr. and Mrs. Salesperson, if you're going to do some outreach and give these people a call, this is what we think their challenge is. And so we've kind of crystallized that down to a business need. And that's really exciting. So we're able to offer a lot of this intelligence through our platform, but we can also append this intelligence to leads. We also generate leads for clients. And leads have typically been, here's the demographic information, here's the firmographic information, and they consume this. Well, now we're able to say, and this account, here's their business need. And that's what we're really excited about. So, that's been the, kind of three pillars of what we've worked on so far with content. There's much, much more to explore. And one of the things that we're thinking about is getting a better sense of the engagement rates. Like, what are the types of content that just seem to spark people's interest? Whether they're at the beginning of a buyer's journey, they're just doing some research. So understanding kind of the content engagement and which types of content perform better is another avenue we want to explore. Again, in tandem with all the details about the content. So why does this piece of content seem to have a better engagement rate either in an email or on a website than that piece of content? That's one of the areas we're looking to explore.
Yeah, and we've started a little bit on interest score as well. Chris, it's fascinating stuff, right? It's absolutely. I could sit and listen to this. I'm just intrigued by the whole piece. As I say, maybe it's because I see it as a little bit of a dark art, and bringing some light to that is really interesting to me. I think if I flip the tables, if I look at the projects that we've done from the other side of the table, it's been super interesting from our perspective. This has been a great journey for us, right? We know that we talk about it a lot because we've been embarking on very interesting technical considerations. So your project was one of the first. In the last episode, I was here with Frankie a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about consumption of AI. We started the business need piece that we did with you on a open source academic model that we were tuning. It was an ML model that we were tuning in order to get that business need. And in the middle of that project, GPT opens its doors, and we suddenly look and go, wow, the speed at which we can accelerate. That wasn't a consumption option that was available to us when we started the project, and we flipped really quickly and pretty easily actually to start to test two models together, taking into consideration, I know you guys considered it greatly, as to I have hundreds of thousands of these documents. What is the cost going to look like for me to own the model versus what's the cost going to look like for me to hit GPT with hitting the business need? But the results from using model as a service, because the power of GPT was just so vast that we flipped our journey when then. And so that's an interesting aspect of this project. Another one is we still don't get to work on many unsupervised learning projects, and we've been embarking on unsupervised learning in that correlation of the business journey of if we start, there's no labeled data for that, right? It doesn't exist. So our guys are getting to really, flex their muscles in their unsupervised learning aspect of how can I do correlation where I'm not presenting any rules to an engine to understand what can we discover business need and make that go. So as fascinating as it is from the business side and valuable, it's incredibly interesting. It's been incredibly interesting for us in understanding how we do flip from a project where model as a service becomes available. How do we do that contrast and compare? How do we, across all of the things that I talked about in the last episode, how do we get to flex our muscles a little bit in the unsupervised learning world where we've done some projects, don't get me wrong, but they're still few and far between. So it's been a hell of a good match, I'll be honest with you. And that's a bit of serendipity in that, right? I take that, but you need a bit of good luck along the way with some of these things. But yeah, it's been super interesting.
It's definitely interesting, and I think one of the you talk about dark arts of marketing, and some
I should stop saying that. That's just
some of what you just went over is some dark art to me. Obviously I understand these concepts in general, but the technology and the aspects, I don't have that sophistication of it. But I think in general with a lot of this technology, there's part of people that are worried. What does this mean? What does it do? It's just a worry. It's a concern. There's a flip side to that I like to focus on, which you just encapsulated. Which this is exciting.
It is exciting.
This is where things can go, and this is how we can improve processes. This is how we can improve marketing. And with what we're doing, as an example, we're not trying to convince you to buy something that you don't need. We're actually trying to help you buy something that will help you do your business better, right? Yep. And so all of these elements come together for, yes, it's marketing. Yes, we're not curing cancer with this, but it's to try to improve a process, try to improve a buyer's journey for real needs. And so exploring all of these things, as basic as some of these concepts may seem, it's a lot of greenfield. It's not really been pursued yet. And so I look at it as there's a lot of interesting potential. And I think we're just scratching the surface on where this goes.
And I think what's really interesting, Chris, is even for our technology folk, and we're a deeply technology-based business, right? We live in the depths of technology. You can't replicate that excitement without there being a known business value. These guys still want to work on something that is going to generate the business value that you've just described. So that's where these journeys and projects really come together, and that importance of it just flows all the way through a project when everybody in the project knows, whether you're a data scientist or whether you're running the product of the company, that the business value, the goal is there. That's what generates that enthusiasm, that excitement that I think we're seeing throughout this project.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things that we try to do a little bit with your team as well is try to connect the dot and explain what our clients see. Because when we show them these key phrases, when we show them the business need, there are light bulbs that go off, right? It's really fascinating. And again, for us, some of it at this point, because we've thought about it so much, it seems quite commonplace. It seems quite basic, but those connections are important, and I think it's important. It's important that this technology is doing. I like to break this all down to the basics. So what's the point of this technology? It's great for me to be able to say, sure, I work in AI a little bit, but to what end? It's all to what end, and some of this end is really fascinating. So we're always trying to explain to the team as well, this is what we're hearing in the marketplace, and it really resonates. People are fascinated by this because some of this work we've engaged with hasn't really been done before. I'm not saying this is the most groundbreaking AI that exists, but it doesn't really exist in our space, and it turns a lot of heads.
That's brilliant. And it is fascinating, and I've been fascinated. Chris, it's amazing how time flies. We are out of time, believe it or not. It's gone super quick. thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us. It's been fantastic. So thank you really sincerely for sharing your time with us.
Thanks for having me.
And the insights, right? It's a fascinating subject, and as you say, it's the combination of the AI in the space that is potentially groundbreaking, and it takes both of those things. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And that's great stuff. So that's it for today. I will remind us we'll be back in a couple of weeks in this room or another room that looks similar to this to immerse ourselves in the next episode of the UnwAIred podcast series. But until then, once again, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.